Welcome back to NewsPlus, everyone. I'm Mark Seagraves. We're joined now by Robert Hyman. He's executive producer of a documentary, Paradise in Peril. But Robert, your business card actually says explorer, doesn't it?
Technically, it's photographer, mountaineer, explorer.
You took a trip a few years ago to the Rainforest in Honduras, and you paint this picture not a first-class trip. I mean, you guys are literally knee-deep in the mud and sloshing through the rivers and whatnot. But you take us to a place few people have ever seen. And you tell the story about the indigenous people who are being forced out. Take us there. Tell us what your story is about.
This area of Honduras is known as the famous Mosquito Coast that Paul Thoreau wrote about, La Mosquitia. And they have two groups of native Indians that live in there. It's called the Rio Plátano Biosphere Reserve. It's actually a UNESCO World Heritage Site because it's so remote and so few people go there. It lends itself to a lot of illegal activity, which includes clear-cutting the forest, not to sell the wood, but actually to burn it, turn it into pasture land for cattle. Illegal fishing, hunting, mining, and they come up there with rifles and they chase the indigenous people off their lands at gunpoint.
And so this is really kind of, you say paradise in peril. There are really two things that are in peril here. There are the indigenous people, first
Absolutely.
of all. There are two groups of Indians that live in this land that make their way. They fish, they do sustainable agriculture.
Traditional, very traditional.
And they have clearly been doing it for generations.
They have.
And tell us how they're being forced out.
Well, they make it very difficult. They come and say, we want to buy your land, and then they pressure them, you're going to sell the land or we will kill you and take your land. So those are your options. Sometimes they can't even prove that it's their land. They don't have pieces of paper that show. These are parcels of land that have been handed down from generation to generation. Only 400 people in the world, approximately, have ever done this descent of the Rio Plátano from the headwaters, all the way in the headwaters in the mountains, all the way 2 weeks to the ocean, to the coast.
And the other part that's in peril there is the land itself and the habitat, the wildlife, the fauna that we see. You show us, you have a scientist with you who's pointing out, the birds and the different species that in some cases you have these groups that come from North America and South America. This is kind of the sweet spot, actually,
it is,
for all of these animals to cohabitate, and they're just as much as in peril as the people there, correct?
It is, that's true. It's one of the largest areas in Central America that's still virgin tropical lowland rainforest. There are many endangered species there, fish, Baird's tapir, there are all kinds of animals, and especially the birds that migrate north and south to this one area. It's remarkable how many species of birds and everything else. All the big cats are there, puma, jaguar, they're all there.
And so you, in your documentary, do a couple of things. You encourage people to go there and to be tourists and to see for themselves. And you encourage them to reach out locally to try to get support to get organizations or governments to take action there.
Mm-hmm.
I guess when I watch it, my first question was, what about the United Nations? Where's the United Nations in this mix?
Well, after going there, I realized how important it was to try to do something. I came back, I contacted UNESCO representatives. We presented them with our report, documents, photographs, GPS coordinates, interviews, testimonials of what is actually going on. And we pressured and pressured. We also contacted the embassy, the Honduran embassy here. But I realized one of the most important things, one of the things that needed to be done was a film, because that really shows what it's about. So we actually went back to do it again. We actually did this trip a second time with a young cinematographer, and it is one tough trip. It's not for the faint of heart. It's a master's course. It's not a 101 course in jungle.
It's a great video to watch. Thank you. And the photography is beautiful, almost distracting. It looks so good. I mean, at times you forget that you're kind of telling a bad story, but in such a beautiful place. And the people that you talk to, while, as you say, their lives and their family heritage is in jeopardy, they seem to just be so happy and at peace with themselves, at the same time in terror.
It's true, and it's sad. It brings tears to your eyes. But the good thing is that people have seen this film. The Honduran government went in with UNESCO officials in a helicopter, saw what was going on, chased the people off the land, and so now they know they're being watched. It's much harder to go into this area and do any illegal activity if you know you're being watched. So we've had a success.
My last question, because you introduced us to your tour guide. He's a fascinating guy, former special forces guy, and at the end you tell us that he's put his life in jeopardy, I guess, just by showing you and taking your crew down there. Update us on him. How is he now?
Well, Jorge Salaverry is the foremost guide of La Mosquitia. He speaks 4 languages. He is educated in the United States. He has a 2-year forestry degree. But once our film came out, we started receiving death threats. So we've taken precautions about that. But he continues to take people there. He runs 3 or 4 trips a year, and it's very reasonable. It's not expensive at all. It's all inclusive, and the good thing is airfare to Honduras is rather cheap right now.
Eric Snowden may be interested in that cheap airfare.
He could disappear into the Mosquitia easily.
Let me ask you, what can people do, one, to see your film and also to get involved with this cause?
Well, first watch the film. If you just do an internet search for Paradise in Peril, you should see it. It's the Rio Platano Biosphere Reserve. Watch that. Check out our Honduran Conservation Coalition website. And if you get a chance to go to Honduras, there are a lot of places. There are great ruins there, archaeological sites, great diving. And if you want to go into the jungle, contact Jorge Salaverry with La Mosquitia Eco Adventuras.
Or you can just watch Paradise in Peril.
Watch Paradise
and Robert Hyman will take you there. Robert, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.